we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Direwolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Direwolf here for our weekly news recap. Behind enemy lines on YouTube, where speech is not free and the truth is demonetized. Alongside me is my co-host and producer, Fox Trevize.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm here.
How you doing tonight?
Not drunk like I was last night. That's for sure.
Oh, so not gonna have fun tonight?
Oh, we're gonna have fun tonight. Just not that much fun.
Fair enough. I heard you weren't able to guilt Krieg Blackpot come on.
Yes, he had duties to perform that he could not do while he was on the show. Well, I guess he could have done them while he's on the show. I don't know.
Different kind of show.
Yes. But he said he might stop by for a little bit, so I guess we'll see that.
So, we got a great show for you guys tonight. Lots of news to cover. But before we do that, I want to thank all our sponsors, Kaylet, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thunder Erican,
and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
Star Shadow says, Dyer is a furry. I don't even know what that is.
That would not be able to be upheld in court, so no.
It absolutely would be able to be upheld in court. The evidence is overwhelming, Your Honor.
I disagree. That is libel and slander.
Yeah, Triumvirate. I noticed that too. Dyer's been Dyer was ahead of the curve on COVID. He's been wearing a mask for like almost a year now.
Yeah, exactly.
He knew it was coming, guys. The U.S. military did plant it.
It was our bioweapon.
Yeah, Dyer knew. No, and
so
Dyer, he has been doing the mask, but I wouldn't say he's been practicing social distancing. That's just called being distant. So
yeah, this is me just being really antisocial.
Yes.
So, Thunder Erican, who is female, thank you very much. Shadow Wolf, Star Shadow, I should throw you in there, thank you very much. And the White Lion, we appreciate all of you guys for helping make this show possible. Also, special thank you to Timberwolf, who not only has donated a lot, but also helps run the Discord server, which is linked below. And the link probably doesn't work. But
yeah, do you want to update that ever? I always get harassed that you don't update that. I'm like, I don't have access to that. That's a Dyer thing. That's like of the very small number of things that you are responsible for. That is one of them.
Very small number. Thanks. But why do I need to keep updating it? It's supposed to be never expiring.
I don't know. I'm not the one who keeps disabling them, so I'm not sure.
So I'm not disabling them either. So I don't know if I'm having to keep resetting them. That's because someone's disabling them.
I think it's Star Shadow's fault.
Yeah,
all
probably.
Right.
So also for those who don't donate to us financially, we do want to thank you for just liking, sharing, subscribing. We appreciate it a lot. It helps the channel grow.
Yes. What if you give us money tonight, though? What happens?
So we do have a special thing going on where we're collecting money to buy masks for the military. So my particular base, the supply for masks is pretty restrained. A lot of people are making them, but we just can't get enough for everybody who needs them quick enough. So for $10 a mask, I'm receiving $10 and I'm buying it directly for that cost from what's her name? She's a content creator who makes them online. Anyways, she gave us a huge discount if we bought in bulk. So right now we've received over $220 for donations for you guys. So we're gonna get at least 11 masks. Awesome. At least 21 rather. 21 masks. Wow, math.
Wow, you did a great job on that segment. You don't know who you're buying from. You're just doing the math.
I know. I'm looking it up right now. I just forgot her name. It wasn't written down.
I didn't realize. I didn't realize I was just like throwing you under the bus there. I thought you were prepared.
So her name is Strawberry Narwhal. Also Unvarnished Void. She's an artist and also a YouTuber.
You want to send me a link? I can pull them up. If she has any pictures of stuff.
She does NSFW, so I would not do that.
Oh, well, maybe like a picture of a mask.
Oh, of the masks.
What are you getting the guys? Jeez. Dara's getting masks with like big old anime titties on them.
Yes, absolutely. That wasn't restricted.
Yeah, I don't. I think I saw the military Twitter tweeting out something about what was like acceptable masks, and I think it said something about being like a plain design that didn't go against like regulations.
Yeah, she actually. I gave her those requirements. She's buying those fabrics.
Nice. You can put anime titties on the inside. All right. Do you want to move on to our first story?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay. While we're still ahead. All right. Our first story is Trump has instructed the Navy to shoot them down out of the sky, Iranian ships that harass any U.S. naval vessels. He also, in a different statement, said that if Iran fucks with us, the U.S. military will come, and they will come large. And that was very terrifying to the extremely homophobic Iran. They did not want the U.S. military to come large. Anyways, last week we reported on how 11 Iranian Navy, quote, speedboats, barely a Navy, they had harassed a U.S. naval vessel in the Straits of Hormuz, posing a very real danger to 7 of our ships. It was a whole, like...
Be gone from me, you soy boy beta cock. The transaction is complete.
Remember, Dyer, my generosity is like Haley's Comet, or my deacon puppers as are my deacon. Yours in that it only comes so often.
Slowpoke's giving us $50. Did you hear some of that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Yeah, Des, thank you very much for the $50.
Thank you very much.
Much appreciated. Very, very thankful for that. I'll pull up that picture here after the story here. Yeah, so like I said, we were talking last week about that. Iran was messing around with our ships. They're getting up real close. They were certainly within a kamikaze distance.
10 meters.
You could like reach out and touch them basically. And it was the understanding of the captains at the time that they were not allowed to defend themselves in an appropriate way. And so Trump was clarifying that for them so that they knew that they could do that. And he said it in a way that implied that the Navy ships from Iran are able to fly,
which is impressive.
Yes.
Wonder how expensive that was.
Yes. They're just driving those boats through the air.
So we also discussed how the lingering Obama-era interpretation of the rules of engagement led to the ship commanders refusing to respond to the deadly threat posed by the Iranians with their own deadly force. The previous interpretation of the ROEs was based on a fear of escalation and the overarching goal of maintaining the political moral high ground, which is stupid, because that's not how you fight a war. But they're basically the idea was they were willing to sacrifice American lives as long as we would maintain the appearance to most people of being a good guy. That assumes that people care, or that they're going to like you, that they're going to back you regardless. And it's based on the very immoral idea that you're going to let your guys, your soldiers and sailors get killed because they weren't allowed to defend themselves for a political goal.
I don't think that many, if there's Iranians that like they're kind of like rebel fifth column type thing that don't like their current government, I really don't think that they're going to dislike us if we shoot down the military that harasses them. If they already don't like us, I don't see how that's going to make them like. That's not going to change. Like if we shoot down, shoot down their boats.
More importantly, I don't think any country on Earth is going to have their opinion changed about us because a ship commander decided to shoot a threat that was coming in.
Well, and in fact, we're supposed to be kind of the world leaders on global security, for better or worse. But there was all throughout last summer, the Iranian Navy was harassing shipping lanes,
British and Indian.
Yeah, and there was the British military finally did something about it. And they had held back, and everybody was very shocked when they did that. We should have done that first, and then we should have allowed the when we did that first, we would have been kind of the leaders on that. Then England would have felt more comfortable doing it, and then we could have both just kind of been like, okay, this is the new rules. It's now acceptable that it's now acceptable to shoot down boats that are doing unacceptable things in the Straits. But the fact that we held back so much on that, the captains are scared they're going to get put in jail for that. And then you got all the other countries that have, supposedly security out there for their shipping lanes, but it's not actually doing anything. For the gun to do something, it needs to be shot. You can't just have it sit there and look at it.
Yeah, and I don't think there was no sanctions. There was no long-lasting political ramifications for the UK when they decided to take action against Iranian boats who were actually seizing commercial tankers. Right? No one saw that as being unreasonable. I don't think that there's going to be any long-lasting political consequences other than maybe Iran decides they want to start a war over us defending ourselves. But if that's what they chose to do, they were attacking in the first place. And we have a right to defend ourselves. It's not okay for the captains and the thousands of men upon those boats to just be expected to sacrifice their lives or put themselves in a situation where the enemy just has to choose to take an action to be able to kill all of them.
Well, and they can't even really a war from their perspective. It's not in their interest to start one because
they can't win one.
If we were to do a very quick invasion of them. The reason why we haven't done that already, well, there's probably a few, but one of them is because they're very bedded in to where they're at in their country. They have a lot of the surface-to-air missiles that are very all over the place, would very easily take down far too many of our jets as we were going through there, jets and bombers. But, so, that's their safety there in their country if we came to them. If they wanted to start some kind of war and come outside of that, anytime they leave their borders, they're just gone. We can just evaporate them. They have none of that protection outside their borders.
With our current capabilities in tech, I'm not concerned that we would be we would be able to deal with their anti-air systems. I know that we wouldn't invade them though. That would be senseless. It would just be us fighting everybody. We're not. I don't think we have. It'd just be more. We had Afghanistan, never-ending war. What we would do is destroy all of their command and control and all their military infrastructure, and then let them pick up the pieces. Because we don't want to invade. I don't think anyone has appetite for that. I don't think we turn the place to glass, Shadow Wolf. We're not going to nuke them because we don't want to
no.
start a nuclear war.
It's plasma beams, not nukes to glass them.
We'll just drop some rocks from the moon and they'll be fine.
Yes, of course, yeah, very easily. That's why you got the Space Force up there. Or you can just give them coronavirus. Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay. On Wednesday morning, clearly in response to the embarrassing and dangerous display from last week, as we talked about last week, Trump tweeted out, quote, "I have instructed the United States Navy to shoot down and destroy any and all Iranian gunboats if they harass our ships at sea." Probably implied in that is that also if they harass our ships in the air. He also added that Sleepy Joe thought this was okay, not me. Because it's actually very true. That's a very good point. Is a lot of these was a rules of engagement that these Navy captains are scared to, or very hesitant to do self-defense actions because they're scared that the rules of engagement, that they're going to run afoul of that, and it'll be an illegal action, and they're going to get sent to military prison for it, and all that stuff. All those rules of engagement were decided on under the Obama administration, under the Obama-Biden, or the O-Biden administration. But Biden's responsible for those, so that's actually a really good point that Trump put out there, that he's not, like, Joe had his chance to speak up about that, and he didn't.
Exactly. And a lot of good men and women have been put in jail because of those interpretations.
Well, and also died. I mean, that was the two ways about it. Was you didn't fire back and you died, or you did fire back and you went to prison. Right.
So there's a great example of this is in Afghanistan. There's two officers. The first one, there was a motorcycle with a military age male coming towards a column of soldiers that were dismounted on the ground, and they didn't see a weapon, so they didn't shoot the guy. He had a bomb vest and he blew up a bunch of the soldiers on the ground. Like just a little bit later, same exact scenario. There's two guys on the motorcycle coming at high speed towards the ground troops, and the officer was being relayed this information by a sniper, and he told the sniper to take the shot, and he went to jail, even though further investigation found that they were terrorists and known terrorists, and they had equipment that showed that they were working with actively terrorists at that time. They didn't have a bomb on them, and that's why he went to jail. But they still had a radio for calling in and giving intelligence on the American soldiers, a military radio. Yep. So that's a great example. So Trump has a history of declaring military policy before the policy has actually been formally declared through the military channels and before any details have actually been hashed out. It's kind of a thing he does. He does it partially for political reasons, to put pressure on different countries without actually having to really do the policies. That says we're going to do this thing to scare them, and then he offers to negotiate with them, right? But he also does it for things he really wants that he's been talking with military leaders with, but they haven't come to an agreement on how yet. He just kind of releases it to the public before it's actually a thing yet.
Are you telling me that Twitter is not an official military channel?
No, it's not.
Oh,
so
that's very
later,
it is now.
So later at a coronavirus press conference, after he did those tweets, Trump clarified that the ROEs have not been changed, even though he says that he's instructed them to shoot at any Iranian ships that come up to the U.S. naval ships. He said the ROEs did not change because the ROEs, as they currently are, cover this policy 100%. So the change in the policies then represents not a change in how it's written, but a drastic change in how it's interpreted. So then the reason why is because these ROEs, these rules of engagement, are written intentionally vague, and they require the current administration to clarify how they interpret those rules. So the rule they refer to is, it says in the ROEs that every soldier, every sailor, every Marine, whatever, they have the inherent right to defend themselves when faced with a legitimate threat. Now, previously, they would say a ship coming up to within 10 meters of a naval boat, but not brandishing a weapon, not shooting at you, is not a legitimate threat. They'd have to literally be fired at before they could return fire. But Trump's saying, no, just the mere presence of that boat that could be laden with explosives, or it is now close enough to get a very clear shot at you, that is the legitimate threat. See, it's same wording, just different interpretation.
Yeah, hopefully they can get that. I don't know. It seemed like a bad idea from my perspective to not rewrite it, because there was precedent set already with the way it's currently written, and the precedent sent people to jail or made them so reluctant that they had to get killed. And so I think that rather just saying, well, we promise we won't interpret it like that. We promise we won't send you to jail. It would be nicer if it was rewritten so that it erases that previous precedent, and then is also much more clear that this is the new rules. Because this just kind of looks like a political game, and I would assume that the Dyer could probably answer this better than I can. I would assume that the military guys can recognize this as a political game, and they are probably still just as hesitant as they were before.
Yeah.
Is it my
I
turn?
agree with that. It is absolutely your turn.
It is my turn. All right. Is it this part?
Yes.
Deputy Defense Secretary David L. Norquist backed up this interpretation by saying, so the president issued an important warning to the Iranians. What he was emphasizing is all of our ships retain the right of self-defense, and people need to be careful in their interactions to understand the inherent right of self-defense.
Thank you so much, sir, for clarifying that for me.
Was that a clarification?
It's showing that it's the military policy. So, like, if someone, like on the captain of that ship, right? If he gives the order to shoot at the Iranian ships when they get within, like, I don't know, 100 feet, whatever they decide that his level of comfort is, and if they try to take him to a court-martial, he'll have statements from the deputy defense secretary and from the president saying this is what their intent is, and he will not get court-martialed for it, or at least he'll get off, right?
Okay. So this is like putting into the public sphere evidence that can be used if this comes to a court case again.
Right. What needs to happen, and is probably happening right now, is that military leaders are drafting memos to clarify what the current policy is. And those will be what's used to determine whether or not someone should or should not be court-martialed. Because, like, they're going to have to actually clarify what is the distance from a ship that now constitutes a threat. Right?
Well, and it's so contextual. There's an infinite amount of scenarios that you're never going to be able to figure out from some boardroom in DC that is going to happen out in the battlefield. That's so.
These policies are going to be routed down through commands closer to the actual combat.
Yeah.
Right. So you have the leadership at the highest levels setting a policy in general, and then it gets refined the lower down the chain it goes. Right.
Yeah. It just seems like this is a step in the right direction. Don't get us wrong. A very, very teeny tiny baby step in the right direction. I do hope that they're getting better. More clear stuff written up in the background. It just one, I don't think it was enough. I think he could have gone further with it, and like I said, it sounds like they might be going further with it in the background.
I think they are. I think Trump did everything he could. Now it's up to the military leaders to actually implement what he said.
It's just kind of it should be infuriating to most people that the military was in this state to begin with. Like that they
it is.
Like people should be upset about that.
I'm upset about it. I'm upset that they, got a lot of people killed, put a lot of good people in that are just serving their country, put them in jail, and they made our country weak. They hurt our influence around the world. They have propped up tyrants through our inaction. Those ROEs were nothing but appeasement and political play at the cost of American lives.
Well,
And all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you!
Slipbook gave us $2. Simple rule of engagement for every military to follow. Rule 1: jackass approaches you, civilian or not, point gun in direction and yell clearly, "Get the fuck back." Rule 2: if jackass does not get the fuck back, open fire. Rule 3: lesson taught to future jackasses.
Yeah, so you stop having Iranian ships coming up to U.S. Navy ships if we shot down a few of them.
Well, and these rules of engagement that they're like living under, like these are like that Trump just has not changed yet. These are the same rules of engagement that led to, what was it, 10 or 12 sailors getting captured hostage.
Yep, because they refused to fire.
Yeah, see, so like I mean I'd imagine that you guys all are all told that Iran is probably one of the least fun people to be captured by and held hostage by.
Yes.
That's absolutely outrageous. And then didn't Obama give him like a bunch of like really high value terrorists back?
Yes. Yes, they gave him much terrorists in return for our sailors they shouldn't have taken in the first place.
That's an outrage. All right.
Anyway, so is a very good thing that Trump expressly stated that ship commanders are permitted and expected to utilize their right of self-defense. And policy memos are likely being drafted to reflect this. This will remove the very real fear commanders, or at least help remove the very real fear commanders have of being jailed for protecting themselves and their crews that existed under the Obama-era interpretation of the ROEs. It may take some time for people to get comfortable and also more clarification from our leadership, but this is a step in the right direction.
That is good. That's the direction of steps that we like to see. This situation reflects an inherent flaw in rules of engagement. They are too vague, and they are open to being used for political purposes, as they were in the Obama administration, because he just had a disdain for the military and for the country in general. Rather than conducting ethical warfare, as these rules are intended to do. These rules are meant to make sure that we're not committing war crimes like the people that we're fighting. They're not meant to try to dismantle anybody who enlisted. They also demonstrate the long-lasting damage the Obama-era presidency has had on the military in every level.
Yes. The cut to the funding down to 75% of what we were being funded at, which reduced the purchase of new equipment, stopped a lot of training, reduced our numbers by a lot, took away a lot of our hardware, defunded the military weapons we actually used to win wars with, right? He is totally fucked with every part of the military. And then on top of that, threatened if we actually fight a war, we're going to put you in jail. So, I mean, he was the worst thing. Oh, yeah, he also, so usually you get a small increase to your pay based on inflation, and he didn't do that.
Really?
Yeah. So the pay increase was very close to nothing under Obama. So
yeah. What's a 0% increase over $0?
Exactly. So because of that, our paychecks basically had less buying power over the 8 years he was in office. So.
Well, what do you need buying power for? You're going to Leavenworth anyways. All
exactly.
Right, next.
You don't need to buy much when you're Leavenworth.
Next story. Alrighty. So we got the Democrat attack ad against Trump. Oh no. What's this going to be? I haven't seen this yet. So this next story came from one of our longtime followers, Kaylet. They shared a video with us. They shared the following video with us, which is a Democrat attack ad against President Trump that was produced by a group called the Democrat Coalition. That sounds ominous. Let's watch.
The most basic duty of government is to defend the lives of its own citizens. Any government that fails to do...
That was a really short pause.
Okay, I'll make my pause
I was like,
longer next time.
I was like, what the fuck's the dog doing? Yeah, your pause is supposed to be a little bit longer. It was like a rapid test, like a I don't know. I don't know what the hell it's called. A reflex test. I failed. There we go.
You failed. Okay, so there's a lot wrong with that clip so far.
Yeah, Jesus, that was a hell of a clip. I don't even know where to start.
Okay, let me start with this. Yes, yes, it is the basic duty of a leader of any nation to protect their people. They are trying to say that Trump didn't do this, but in fact, he was the only one doing anything to stop the spread of the virus before it came to the States. When Trump called to end the travel from China or to restrict travel from China, the Democrats were too busy impeaching him and calling him racist for calling for the travel restrictions. Biden said that he was being a xenophobe for doing that, and then later on said he agreed and said that Trump did the right thing like a month later, right?
That was 2 months later.
2 months later. So originally he is racist for doing it, and then when they realized how bad it was, like, oh yeah, we actually agree with him now, even though we called him a racist and a xenophobe back then. He was the only one who reacted, the first person to actually do something about the spread of the virus, and they criticized it. And well, at the same time where he was trying to stop travel, the Democrats were telling people not to social distance.
Well, Nancy was inviting people out
to.
Yeah, Nancy was inviting people to come to parties, like in Chinatown.
Yeah, so
psychopath.
This is supposed to be an ad in support of Biden, but Biden would have done nothing. Nancy Pelosi was actually telling people to not follow what the medical experts were telling them to do to prevent the spread of the disease. So, yes, those people are also government leaders. Those are House members and senators. Those people are supposed to also be taking care of the lives of people that they lead, and they weren't doing it. They were doing the exact opposite. Trump was the only one who did. They're showing you pictures of hospitals. They're hospital tents that are set up by FEMA and set up by the military so that you would have extra hospital beds in New York. That's a thing that the government did to take care of the people. Why is that being showed as a negative thing, that they made hospitals? And how is the people going and clearing out the stores Trump's fault? How is that him not protecting the people? Does he control the entire market? Did he make the virus? The answer is no. That makes no sense. Trump is constantly Trump consistently takes action to protect the lives of American people, and the Democrats have consistently sacrificed American lives for the sake of political power. They're also government leaders. They have the same standard that they're saying that Trump needs to follow, where he's supposed to be his main duty is to take care of the lives of the American people. That's supposed to be their duty too. Here's a few examples. The Democrats put their political interest ahead of actually securing the border and stopping the spread of human trafficking, drugs, and violent crime. They defended and encouraged Antifa because they're on their political side of the spectrum. But that's not protecting American lives, encouraging street violence. Tell people to go find people and harass them in the streets. It's also the Democrats or the ones who are doing the tyrannical and arbitrary imposement of lockdowns. Not every state has a crazy lockdown, but the states that do have crazy lockdowns that are arbitrary and don't actually provide any additional protection from the virus, those are Democrat states. You're talking about California and New York. Those are the ones who are actually putting people in jail, arresting people for going out for a walk or going out for a swim or going out to the park and endangering nobody, just themselves. Those are the people who are actually destroying the economies of their states by shutting down stores that don't need to be shut down, shutting down restaurants entirely when they could remain open with extra protections. They're the ones that are making people lose their jobs, commit suicide, and starve. Those are the people who are actually harming the lives of Americans, and they're trying to pin that on Trump. Oh, don't let me forget. It's not the federal government that's supposed to provide PPE and medical supplies. Every state is responsible. Every state has their own responsibility to have emergency supplies of medical stuff. The federal government is just a backup. They have additional stuff for when the states are overwhelmed. But you know what? A lot of states that were saying that they had huge deficits in masks and other medical equipment is because they had no stocks. They didn't do their basic responsibilities. Those state governors were not following their responsibility of taking care of the lives of their people in their state. That's not Trump's fault. And Trump actually gave equipment to those states. And in the case of New York and those ventilators, they didn't even use them.
Trump's response only saved lives. If anyone is to blame for the China virus, it is China. Who created it through either malpractice or their filthy cultural habits.
All you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth.
$2.
How dare you!
He says, Starshadow says, does anyone remember when I used Dissenter to post Dyer is a furry on every one of Dyer's videos? Starshadow, do you remember when I was the one that told you to do that? I mean, no. What? Anyways, so yeah, so if the Democrats or anybody wants to blame anyone, I mean, there's certainly there's a lot of blame to go around for a lot of people botched a lot of stuff all over the place, but you know, at the origin point is China, and they are. If anyone is guilty for the nations around the world not being prepared for the China virus, it's China, and their patsies at the who have lied to the world about the virus by not telling everybody as soon as they knew, and then when they did know, they lied about how bad it was. They lied about what the effects were and how to keep yourself safe from it. They had condemned Trump for issuing travel bans.
They refused to call a pandemic.
Yes, they refused. I think they've only recently called a pandemic, like two or 3 weeks ago.
I think it was like a month, but still way later than we already knew it was a pandemic.
Yeah. Let's see. I could share the blame goes to government leaders that believed China and ignored this threat. That would be the Democrats. Very, very low. If you want to blame, you know, the list of people to blame, Trump is very, very low on that list.
Yeah. That's the worst thing you could say is he referred to it as being like the flu, but still when calling it that, he was still taking steps to advise people to social distance, to advising places to do quarantines, advise and stopping travel. He was still doing the right thing, even though he was going way above and beyond to try to prevent people from freaking out.
Yep. Well, yeah, and we know that in the background he was making the task groups that were going to, well, that were working on what the solutions would be. So I mean, he was definitely working on the stuff in the background.
Right. Also, the WHO, they were telling us as far as like late January that the virus still was not spread from person to person. Like, seriously.
All stars.
So, again, the last part is a big part of this video is implying that the lack of supplies was a result of Trump's failure to act. But those supply shortages are at the state level primarily. The federal stockpiles are a backup for when the states failed, and those should have been. And yeah, that could have been better stocked.
Well, it's not.
The states should have better stocked.
Yeah, it's not Trump's job. Yeah, the CDC was empty, but Trump isn't in charge of the CDC. There's the whole CDC that is in charge of the CDC. There should still be hearings as to what in the fuck they were doing the last like 60 years, because it's unacceptable that they just allowed themselves to not be to not refill their stockpile. They weren't asking anybody, that they weren't making a big deal about it. You know, I mean, they had I believe it got emptied out in 2012 during what was that, Ebola for during Obama administration.
Yep.
And they just let it sit there for 8 years. You know, and Trump, you know, he's only been president for 3 of those years. And then you've got Congress. Nancy's been in Congress for all 8 of those years. You know, you got all the Democrats there. Any one of them could have pushed this if the CDC needed money or whatever. They could have pushed that over the line. They didn't. That is on them. Trump cannot be held responsible for micromanaging every single agency. That's just outrageous.
Right. So let's finish the rest of the video.
All right.
Any government that fails to do so is a government unworthy to lead.
There'll be a lot of death, unfortunately. There will be death.
Yeah, not a single implication in this ad is accurate. And I think that it doesn't really take me having to explain all that for you to know it. I think that
was
looks
just like pure Orange Man bad.
yeah.
That's all that was. Well, because it wasn't even really like, I mean, I guess it probably was like for Biden, but I mean, the strategy they're going to be using, it's not going to be a pro-Biden message because there is no Biden message. The only message that Biden's campaign can run on is Orange Man bad and Biden is an orange. Like that's right. The only thing that Biden has going for him. They if they wanted to put up there, normally what you would have seen on an attack ad like this, I believe Trump even put out one recently that went the other way, but he was juxtaposing himself against what other his rivals were saying. It would be funny if the if Biden campaign tried to do that, juxtapose what Trump said and was doing versus what Biden was saying and doing, because one, they don't have any clips of Biden speaking coherently, and two, if they did, it would mostly be Biden saying, well, we need to throw open the borders even more, and we should not be racist during this time.
Yeah. This looks bad for Biden, really, because the comparison is really bad. For Trump actually was taking action, and Biden was saying, don't take action. And then it reversed himself later on, far too late to actually have achieved anything. So, yeah.
This is going to be a really weird election year. It already is.
Yeah, that's foregone conclusion. All right, next story.
All righty. Here. Reports now claim that Kim Jong-un is in a vegetative state. If this is true, it would mark the first time that the portly despot...
All you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you!
You interrupted my joke, how dare you! All right, we're going to restart that, and then I will read Slowpoke's donation. Reports now claim that Kim Jong-un is in a vegetative state. If true, this would mark the first time the portly despot has ever had an association with vegetables.
It's hilarious.
So Slowpoke gave us $2. He said, Trump failed, but by that ad's logic, so did every single senator, governor, small government in the entire U.S. and by extension, the world. Yes, if there's anything to have been learned from the China virus pandemic, it's that human civilization is generally a failure. It's a failed experiment.
The other thing we learned was if there was a standard, it would be doubled. So, yeah, I don't think he's ever eaten vegetables, Kim Jong-un. I'm not. They can't convince me he knows what a vegetable is. I don't think they even farm anything
yes.
other than dirt. So these claims come after Little Rocket Man underwent a heart procedure following rumors of chest pain and a collapse earlier this week. According to Daily NK, North Korea, a South Korean paper. Really?
Yeah, it's a South Korean paper that like specifically focuses on North Korea.
Okay, according to the Daily North Korean, a South Korean
newspapers in North Korea.
You're right. That's hilarious. His heart problems were probably brought on by excessive smoking, obesity, and overwork. Are they serious? His heart being 3 sizes too small may have had something to do with it as well.
Yes. During his presidency, President Trump had forged some semblance of a relationship with Kimmy. And when asked about the situation, Trump responded, quote, I hear that the report was an incorrect report, and I hope it was an incorrect report. Trump likely hoped that it was incorrect because Trump would probably like to continue capitalizing on the gains he has made with Kim rather than starting from scratch with a new leader. And to be honest, that's what we'll discuss here in a bit, is we just don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of the devil is usually what is preferred, especially in these kinds of regimes. It's usually not, it doesn't switch into a good direction usually when there's a death like this.
Yeah, instability rarely leads to good things.
Yes.
Yesterday, China, who is asshole, sent a delegation of medical experts to advise on the Supreme Leader's health.
No,
this delegation...
What kind of leader?
Supremely large leader's health. His body's large, but his heart is very small.
Yes.
This delegation is also likely China's attempt to make sure that they are staying ahead of any potential sea change should Jong die. North Korea has not made clear who would potentially succeed Kim, but some experts believe his sister, and probably lone surviving family member, Kim Yo-jong, would step in as leader, at least during a transitional period. And now would be really, and that good time for now would be a good time for an enterprising fifth column elements in North Korea to make their move. Sorry about that.
Yes, if there's any rebels that were planning something,
This would be a good time.
Yeah, this would be a great time to overthrow the country, guys. You guys, we're counting on you. We believe in you. Go, Korean rebels.
If you're tired of eating grass and dirt and being told how and when to cry, you might want to choose to revolt.
Yes. So so far the best hot takes I've seen on Twitter are there was a lot of excitement that if his sister gets into power, that the balance of female dictators in the world will be going up. Which is a win for feminism, clearly. So that's exciting. And then also that, some people are trying to say that, Kim's in a vegetative state or that he died. But one of the better ways I saw of framing it was that Kim Jong-un may have become a good communist.
He's
as we all know, the only good communist is a dead communist.
So I saw an article where, a lot of people are saying, the possibility he's dead or dying. We don't know, honestly. But people are saying in response to that possibility that they are happy because he's a despot, right? He's a dictator who is, taking advantage and torturing and oppressing his people. Some people think that one less dictator in the world is a good thing. Right. Well, some people on the left have a opposing opinion. They think that if you are happy that the North Korean dictator is possibly dead, then that means you're a racist.
Probably.
Or maybe because you don't like him. Maybe you don't like him because you actually want good things for the North Korean people.
Yeah, I think
which case, opposite racist.
I think next time, some kind of big world event happens, if just everybody that's right of Mao, we all just stay quiet and end up forming an opinion. The SJWs would have no idea, because the only way they form their own opinions is just by mirroring whatever we're saying. And not
having an opinion will become racist.
Yeah. So I'd be curious, what would happen to them if we just didn't have an opinion on something? Would they just cease to exist?
No, we've already have a precedent for this. So it's like being colorblind, right? Oh, because you don't care about the color of someone's skin, well, that means you're racist. You're not accepting them for who they are. Blah 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 blah. Right? Or you're not. It's just that kind of logic. I can put it for.
Perfect. So I guess we started this story yesterday. I believe is when it was first being reported, and there's been more and more reports throughout today, even later this evening. Kind of other sources that are confirming that if he's not dead, he's not doing well and probably won't wake up. But again, we just won't know for probably quite a while. I'm sure U.S. intelligence probably has a better beat on it, but whether or not that'll become public, who knows? Obviously, getting reliable news sources out of North Korea is a difficult task. But what do you think's gonna happen? Let's say he's dead. What do you think's gonna happen, Dyer? What's that do for security in that region?
So, I've heard his sister might be less crazy, eccentric than he is, but I mean, we don't know until it happens. Right. We don't know what kind of leader. I think that she will be a leader, by the way, once he dies. But we don't know what someone will do. I don't think it's going to drastically change the scenario because I think that the people in the leadership of North Korea, they know they can't win a war against us, and that the purpose of having a nuke is not to use it. It is to brandish it to get what they want. Right.
I'm curious what China's going to do because I get the feeling that China would not want to. It would not be in China's interest if North Korea had some kind of renaissance and came out of what they are right now. If his sister took over, or if there was some kind of revolution and they kind of liberated themselves, I think that would not be in China's interest. And so I'm curious what they. I don't know. I'm almost imagining like China needing to annex North Korea. I'm sure that they want to. Well, they want to annex the whole world, so it's probably not that big of a hot take. I just don't know like how they could go about doing that without causing problems that would require a response from us, or maybe they don't care. I don't know.
So the people in North Korea, they live in fear because of the complete totalitarian state. Someone sniffs the wrong, sneezes the wrong direction, and they get murdered. Right?
Sniffing, man, Biden would be really out of luck there.
Biden would not survive well there. Yeah. So they're so swift, and they're so over the top in taking out any kind of dissidents that I don't think that there's going to be a revolution. I think people are too scared there. They also are completely dependent on their survival on the state.
They do have a pretty good like black market though. I've seen some documentaries on that. South Korea, they do all kinds of stuff trying to get like thumb drives and CDs and all kinds of like stuff over to them, which usually has like a lot of music and shows and newscasts and all kinds of stuff like from like the West and from their country, and getting that into North Korea where they normally wouldn't have access to it. And there seems to be, from what I'd seen, there was a really big movement. Like a lot of North Koreans were like participating in swapping those thumb drives around. So
but if you get caught one of those thumb drives, your entire family's dead.
Yeah. So I'm just saying though, I think that there is enough people there that are woke to the situation and are willing to do something about it. It's just we're waiting for some kind of an unstable time right now, like they're in right now. That would be the best time to do it.
I don't think it's gonna be enough. Even if he dies, I don't think it's gonna be enough. Why wouldn't they have done it with the last time their leader died? I don't think that they have. This would be a scenario where it's destabilized enough. And I think that China would, if that did happen, it's not going to be the revolution you think it's going to be. I don't think the people are going to rise up and take control of the country. I think China's going to come in and stomp it out and take it over.
I bet you China installs somebody. I bet you one of his generals becomes somebody. Maybe his sister is for a little while. And then one of his generals becomes supreme leader, and they are just much more fully controlled by China than what Kim already was.
Yeah, they're already in some degree controlled by China because they're dependent on their supplies. Yeah. China gives them food.
Yep. I don't know. Well, I guess there's a lot of... it's funny because there's... Like, coronavirus basically put the whole world on pause, but like, a little pause. But there's still stuff going on. I mean, you got situations like this that are, really big international situations. I wonder what would have been different if the whole world wasn't on lockdown, if China wasn't like doing maneuvering and stuff like that in the South China Sea and all that stuff. I don't know. It's just it's a bad time for that to happen. Anytime that there's instability with our enemies, it's not good.
Yeah.
All right.
Whoever does take over, I'm sure there'll be an immediate show of force to try to establish themselves as being, don't fuck with me.
She should take power now and have him killed if he's not dead already.
Just attach him to one of the rockets they fire. That'd be funny. It'd be totally throw the weight off though.
Isn't that the end of? Isn't that how the interview ends?
No, it ends with a rocket being launched into a helicopter he's hanging out the side of.
Oh, that's
right. And he blows up.
That's right.
I just watched it.
Oh, okay. not for fun. It was a military training exercise.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Ready for our next story?
Yes.
Alrighty.
Ooh, a fun one. This is for you, Triumvirate.
Fun? He's pissed me off. New York, coronavirus, antibody test study. Ugh. Why are we? We just did the antibody test studies last night, Doc.
Yeah, but we didn't do the New York one. It just came out. We didn't have time to look.
I know we didn't do the New York one. All right. So The New York. So, like I said last night, we talked a bunch about the California antibody studies, which I think we went through and kind of debunked the conclusions from. We had said that there was other studies coming out that were, we only have so much time in the day to keep up with these. But the New York one came out yesterday or the day before, I believe. So we went through that, or Dyer did at least. So the New York coronavirus antibody test study, they sampled 3,000 individuals, and they got their samplees from 40 different stores in 19 counties all across New York State. So not just New York City.
Yes, state. And those are big box stores and grocery stores. And one thing you might say when you hear that is that going to be giving a representative sample of infection rate? I think that it's kind of hard to get it unless you're like randomly picking people at their houses. I don't think I honestly don't think it is going to be representative. I think people are more likely to be infected if they're out and about. But this is the best we can get as far as a random sampling is concerned, I think, right now. So what they got was at 13.9, almost 14% of those tested statewide had been or were currently infected based on the presence of antibodies in their system. Test positive rate was higher in New York at 21%, which makes sense because that's where most of the density was and where most of the cases were at. But it also demonstrates the problem of trying to extrapolate the spread of an average across the country when the spread is determined by other factors like density, populations densities in different areas, right? So you'd expect there to be a much different percentage of people infected in New York City than somewhere not very far away, still in New York. So you can't say, well, because Santa Clara has this percentage of people infected, that you just take that same percentage and take it to New York and it should apply. Because it doesn't. The way the virus spreads is very different based on a number of factors, including population density. Regardless, go on.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too that it seems like intuitive, like that you wouldn't be able to just take numbers from Santa Clara and just copy paste them onto New York, or vice versa, or onto any other city or like the whole U.S. population. It seems like something that I don't think that you could actually do that. It doesn't quite make sense. And if they do want to do that, which is what the media is trying to do with these studies, they need to explain the math that they're using to come up with that, because there is none. That's the problem. They're not explaining it. They're just being vague and be like, well, it's it's appeal to authority. These guys, they got PhDs in their name. It's from a science journal. Just you're dumb, so you wouldn't understand. Just believe us. I really don't like that. This stuff should be explainable. And when you go through and look at it, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, Trevor made a good point here. So what she was trying to say is that a study in a certain area will only reflect the likely results for that area if the area is drastically different from other areas you're trying to extrapolate out to. There's places in, like, I don't know, Tennessee that are so different from New York that you could not expect the data from New York to be transferable.
And if you're going to, again, like I said, though, like there is ways to adjust the data. It decreases its accuracy, and I'm not seeing accuracy numbers being reported with any of these as well, which is also wrong and not scientific. But you can try to adjust it for, we did this sample size in New York, and we did this, and this to the population to try and adjust it so that it matched that weird town in Tennessee. Like, that's fine, but you need to explain that. You can't just say, well, believe us. Like, no, I don't believe you. That's not science. You need to explain how you did it, and they don't explain that stuff.
And you're right. And we have we have articles saying, oh, because the percentage in Santa Clara, because there's one study, is this number of millions of people, that means that in the entire country, this many people may be infected. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it's not good science. It's in fact very bad science.
It's not science.
This resulted in the study, the numbers Dyer just went through, resulted in a prediction that 2.7 million people have been infected out of New York State's population of 19.45 million people. based on the predicted infection rate of the study and current numbers of deaths being 19,500, the mortality rate is calculated as 0.72% mortality rate. Is that the case fatality rate or the infection mortality rate?
That would be infection, not case.
Okay.
So there's two big caveats here. This was something this is either how the study did it or how New York does it. But it says that the data is preliminary, so that they're still taking samples. This is just the so far result. They haven't finished their study, right? So there's going to be more results later on. It may affect the data. A second big caveat is that apparently they were not counting people who died at home or people who died not in a hospital or nursing home. So if you died from coronavirus but weren't tested before you died and weren't in a hospital, they didn't count that death towards the total mortality.
This is really like irresponsible reporting. This is extremely irresponsible.
So the death rate may be off based on how they decided to count mortality. The next thing is, so the rate that they found was 0.72%. That is 400. Actually, it's over 400% higher than the mortality rate determined by the Santa Clara study.
Which is what we said yesterday when we went through the Santa Clara study. We were like, if you try to extrapolate these across New York, you can see it clearly doesn't line up with the reality of New York. And now we're seeing the study out of New York, and it's confirming that. I don't know. These are both.
I think that the New York study, though it's not complete, is far more accurate and has a far better methodology than the Santa Clara study, which didn't have a good methodology at all.
So here's one of the problems too: is we have billions of your tax dollars are getting flooded through the CDC, the NIH, and the FDA, and a whole bunch of other agencies. All years and years, decades of this. Billions and billions of tax dollars every year. Why is, during a nationwide and even a global pandemic, but I don't really care about the rest of the globe, I'm talking about us, so nationwide pandemic, nationwide health crisis, why is the CDC not acting as a clearinghouse for data and studies? Why are we relying on random medical students they're not even actually graduates yet? They're just, Billy Bob and, some senator's 20-year-old daughter who, thought it'd be cute if she'd be a nurse or something like that. They're out there doing these studies, or they're having hospitals that already have their resources stretched really thin, and they're supposed to go out there and do these studies. And you have all these private groups doing these independent studies, all using different techniques, gathering data in different ways. They're all doing it in different own unique ways. When we have centralized agencies that could act as repositories for all this data, they have experts there who are professionals. They're not 20-year-old graduate students. They are people who are adults that are, statisticians and all kinds of people. They could be doing this in a centralized fashion and giving out a unified number set, saying, okay, this is what the unified study says across the whole nation, breaking it down by sub-regions based off where we're collecting data at. And they could just task all those hospitals, all those medical schools, say, you guys can still go out there and collect the data, but this is how you're going to go about collecting the data so that everyone's doing it the same way. And then we, the CDC, are going to crunch those numbers for you, because we don't want 80 different studies all with 80 different mathematical statistic techniques being used. We would like some goddamn consistency. Otherwise, we can't get none of these studies are being done in the same way. There's no way to cross-reference them. I just don't understand what the point of these centralized agencies are if they don't do anything other than just gobble up money.
They're really good at gobbling up money, though.
They are great at that.
That is a primary goal. So on the positive side...
I know the CDC is not going to do that triumvirate. That's why they shouldn't exist.
So on the positive side, this New York study seems to have made a very honest attempt at showing its data and trying to find a truly randomized representative sample group, right? And they aren't settling with their current sample group. They're not done. They're not saying 3,000 is enough, and they're continuing to gather more data. The problem with the current results is that the results are based on a very limited set of data, and that they haven't decided to conclude based on this limited set of data. They're saying here's what the preliminary results are so far, but they'll have a more clear image later on.
What I really want to see, it was impossible in the Santa Clara study because they were using Facebook ads to recruit. But if they're actually out there in person in New York, like stopping people walking into stores and stuff like that, I'd like to know how many people that they asked said, no, I don't want to get tested. And then maybe what their reasoning is for it. Because I still suspect, because I know I personally, I would make this decision I'm about to just explain, is I don't think I've been infected. And if I was offered a test to go somewhere to get tested, I would decline because it is my opinion that I would be putting myself at risk of getting infected when I went to a testing location. And I imagine there's, maybe not everyone, but there's enough people that would be making that that calculus decision that they don't want to get infected by going to a testing location. I'd imagine.
Isn't it a blood test? You just do it right there.
I don't know. I have no idea, Dyer.
I think you didn't have to go anywhere to do it.
No, but just like interacting with somebody, like you're gonna have. I don't want somebody. I don't want some nurse or some lab student or whatever who just touched a bunch of other people to come up and touch me. I'm not gonna trust that they've been sanitizing themselves. Absolutely not. I'm trying to avoid.
I think it's a selection bias you can't really remove entirely.
Exactly. I don't think you can remove it, but I would like to know what it is. Is it, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's only, 1 out of 100 people is like, no, I don't want tested. Maybe it's, for every one person that got tested, there was 50 people that were like, no way, man. That would be interesting information to publish alongside these studies, and they're not doing that. Under proper science, that sort of data would be included in this. It's relevant to the study. It's relevant to what you said, the selection bias. Yeah. I'm not seeing that either. There's a lot of really shoddy science going on here, and I don't like it. I wish there was, at least if it was centralized, because I think the CDC probably isn't the greatest at science either. That's just my opinion of it. I don't know if I got anything to back that up on. It's just my bias.
They did make the F-35 a test kit, so I think you're right.
At least, at minimum, if it was being centralized into CDC, they'd at least be fucking them up all in the same way. Right now, again, we have all these different studies, and they've all got their own unique way of fucking it up.
Though this study is a big step in the right direction, and at least is trying to provide some real data. It's incomplete, and they accept that. So
well, and you got to ask yourself, why is it incomplete? The top two, there might be a couple different reasons, but the top two I can think of why it would be incomplete is one, incompetency.
It's not finished. It's literally just still being done.
Well, I'm talking about the other ones in general. I mean, like, yeah, okay. They should. Well, first off, it's irresponsible for the New York study to have published anything unless they're done with it. That's a problem. Or they should have, I don't know, they should have done something else about that. But the other studies, it's, are they not including some of this extra information that's highly relevant because they're incompetent, or are they not including it for some other reason because it doesn't fit the narrative that they're trying to study? That's concerning to me. And Triumvirate says, yes, it's highly relevant to the numbers, and he's a numbers guy, so I believe him. But Dyer left. So I guess it's just me, but we are moving on to our next story anyways. So, military tensions in the South China Sea. What do you think, Dyer?
Sounds like fun.
All right. You a little tense. All right. So this week, the U.S. Navy dispatched an amphibious assault ship, the Bunker Hill, which is a guided missile cruiser, into disputed waters of the South China Sea off the coast of Malaysia.
At the same time, Yes,
a picture
amphibious.
of this?
I didn't grab a picture of them. I'm sorry.
Are you serious? What you just put a random boat down there? You are
Okay. So at the same time, a Chinese government ship at the same time, a Chinese government ship in the area has for days been following a Malaysian state oil company ship carrying out exploratory drilling. Last week, a Chinese carrier strike group sailed through the contested section of sea, mirroring maneuvers from their previous wargaming for striking against Taiwan. And at the same time, Australian warships have also joined the U.S. ships in the area to provide a counterpressure to China's intimidation of its neighbors. So there's a lot of nations involved, a lot of tension going on, and China is trying to flex their muscle and harass their neighbors.
Boo. China has taken advantage of the distraction caused by the China virus outbreak to step up their operations in the South China Sea, which involved mostly harassing fishing boats. Sarcasm. A matter of the highest level of national security for China. Yes, those damn fishing boats. Earlier this month, the Vietnamese accused a Chinese patrol ship of ramming and sinking a Vietnamese fishing boat.
Why?
R.I.P. That's sad. Peter Jennings, a former Australian defense official, said, quote, It's quite a deliberate Chinese strategy to try to maximize what they perceive as being a moment of distraction and the reduced capability of the United States to pressure neighbors. We don't really put pressure on people. We just exist, and they feel threatened.
So having the carrier group there, all of our naval ships there, having our continuous bomber presence flying over that area of sea, that's us making sure that they know that they can't attack Taiwan. They can't be, ramming into fishing boats because they'll know we'll intercede, right? But when we're gone, there's a vacuum of influence there that they can take up, and they use that influence to just mostly harass fishing boats for some reason. It seems like a really a waste of power, but okay. So if you guys look at that map,
communism.
it's like throwing your weight around, but to achieve nothing. If you look at the map there on the left, you can see the source of the territorial tensions in the South China Sea. Malaysia, the Philippines, Vietnam, Taiwan, and Brunei all claim to have the ability to control the waters immediately off their shores, which makes sense. We do the same thing. Every country does that. Has a shore. They claim the waters as being their responsibility to patrol.
China's just like, all the waters that aren't off of your shore are off of our shore, and we're just going to go right up against all your borders.
Yeah. So every country in this area, even tiny little Brunei there, they claim about 500 to 1,500 kilometers off their shore, depending what shore you're talking about and what country. It varies between those ranges. China, on the other hand, do you see that red line? That's what China's claiming. And it has no correlation to their actual shores.
This is mine now.
And now their reasoning is, now if you zoom in a little bit, you'll see that there's a bunch of little dots in the middle of that red blob there. Now those are a lot of islands owned by different countries, mostly the Vietnamese. But also there are like 6 islands that are owned by the Chinese. Some of them are made by the Chinese. They're manufactured islands on a very shallow area.
Made in China.
Yes, shallow area of the ocean where they manufactured islands. And they built military bases, and one example of those military bases is on the right top of your screen there.
I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of cool, though. We should do that.
I thought, hey, they're building islands there because it's shallow ocean. Why can't we do that? Just claim it as a new island now belongs to us. And that's what they did. And they said, okay, because we have islands here, we now claim all the waters in 1,500 meters or kilometers around these islands, plus some more. And like all the other islands, they just claimed like the waters directly off the shore of that island. You see the little circles; they're tiny, right? They're like a mile off the shore, and that's it. Not for China. They claim the whole damn ocean. And
We
so
see some tsunamis going through there and be good to go.
yeah, so obviously you see these lines overlap, and that means that Vietnamese fishing areas and Vietnamese military ships that are trying to patrol their waters are coming in contact with China, who's saying they're patrolling their waters, which is actually their waters. And same thing for the Philippines and Taiwan, Japan. And of course, add into this whole mix, China doesn't think Taiwan is a nation in the first place. They think that Taiwan is a rogue province that broke off of China and will eventually become part of China again, and they don't respect their sovereignty whatsoever. So they're just completely, harassing anything in the Taiwanese sea. And China's goal in doing all this ridiculous claiming of the ocean, which I hopefully this picture shows that does not make sense for anybody, is they want to control shipping. They want people to have to go through China to use this very, very busy shipping area, right? They also want to have complete aerial control of this area, so they can control who is flying where. And they want to have these bases on these islands to provide a buffer air defense from the U.S. because their biggest vulnerability is that we have assets that can launch planes and hit China that are very close to them. And the way to deal with that, to negate our ability to use air power, is to have lots of SAM sites and silos on these islands.
Oh, so they kind of got that whole region locked down now. That's
their radar. If you could see the radar map for this area, it is ridiculous.
very well covered. Yeah.
Very covered. And now, these tensions, they're not new. We've had for a very long time. We would fly military planes and drive naval ships through these waters. And they would, when they would send warnings, tell us to get out of the waters, and then they would tail us, and they would do close flybys. They'd lock onto us with missile radars and just ping us, tell, hey, we can see you, we can fire a missile at you anytime, type thing, right? The U.S. is there because if we aren't there, they're going to be bullying their neighbors and preventing them from using the shipping lanes, preventing them from flying their planes through, preventing them from patrolling their own borders.
Yeah, like we said, they're kind of trying to take advantage of the current situation. It's kind of their fault. The China virus is everywhere. But obviously, you guys know we had our military assets in the region are a little bit in flux right now. Not that we can't patrol the region. It's just different than what the plan was because some of our big ships were infected. They're not down for the count completely, but they are out of position, and we're having weird coverage patterns now in that area, and so China's trying to take advantage of that. I don't think that the coverage is so thin that China could actually get a actual advantage from it. It's just that both sides are less predictable now, which means that the tensions in that area are a little bit higher.
And Australia is sending in ships to help rebalance it as well.
How'd they get their ships there? Aren't they be upside down by the time they got there? They get capsized?
Oh my god.
Next
wow. Wow. Next story.
Is that a good one to conclude on?
Yeah, right. I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah, it's a speechless dire. All right, so Folding at Home update. Yay, it's very exciting. So you guys know about Folding at Home. Been talking about it for what, 4 weeks now, probably? So Folding at Home is a group. They have software package that you can download onto your home computer. It will link your computer into a network of a whole bunch of other home computers, and together they are the biggest supercomputer in the universe. Well, it's on Earth, but we don't know of any other computers in the universe, so it probably could be. So that's very fun. What are we doing with all that giant supercomputer power? We are folding proteins for COVID. So the one of the ways that researchers are looking for potential drugs that would work against the coronavirus is they are running simulations of the little proteins that are little machines that make the virus do what it does By simulating those, you can see how those little machines move around, and while they're moving around, you can see if there's any spot on those proteins that an existing drug could bind onto and break those machines. So they have to do a lot of simulations to do that. They're trying to look through to see if there's any old drugs, like something like chloroquine, or maybe there's something else that we developed 50 years ago, and just nobody realizes, like, oh, that's actually the perfect drug for this. And so this is a really important project, certainly in my opinion. But basically, you can be part of the solution. This is going to be certainly one of the many routes that we are trying to use to solve the coronavirus problem. But this is a route that you guys can actually help out with. So if you go to foldingathome.com and you download the software, you can join our team. You can start folding. You don't got to do anything. All you got to do is just download it, hit go. It'll link you into the network. It'll take care of the rest of it for you. But you can start, again, lending your computer to this giant network that is looking for a cure to the coronavirus. And so if you download that, you can join our team, the Direwolf Media team. We are team 250791.
Link below.
Yes. And then, yes, there is links below. But that's, I'm really happy with that. It was a very cool project. And so far, the Direwolf Media team has folded, I didn't update that part. We folded a lot of work units so far. I think it's up in the thousands now. But as of this week, we have made it into the top 5,000 teams. That's awesome. I'm very excited about that. So we are ranked 4,886 out of 252,000 teams. We're top 5,000 out of 250,000 teams. That's pretty great. So that means that we are doing our part, contributing to that network, contributing to doing these experiments, looking for a drug that would work against the coronavirus, which is great. So far on our team, we've got me. I've folded 404 work units, which is a lot. We got Dark Dave 23 has folded 290. Triumvirate folded 250. Thank you, Triumvirate. Shadow Wolf has folded 54. Stars Haddo 166. Wolf Smoke 88. Thundra Erican has joined. She's new to the team. She's folded 12 work units so far. And Dire Wolf has folded 1 work unit. In 5 weeks, he's folded 1 work unit, guys. Killing me.
It was a really hard one, okay?
You're killing me, Dire. You're literally killing us all. Dire wants you to die. That's why. We'd be ranked like top 10 if you just get your ass on board with this. you gotta go drop this on the military servers and get them just cranking through this.
That'll probably get me fired and jail.
Yeah, but we would solve the coronavirus, Dire. Do it for your country. And then as we can see on this graphic here, because Dire sucks at folding proteins, he probably drinks bleach. I think there's a correlation there.
That's fake news. Retraction.
Yeah, it's Dire's fake news. So again, thank you guys, everyone except for Direwolf for joining us on this project. I think it's really cool that we can be, just with your computer at home. It's probably sitting there not doing probably not using it. Probably using it quite a bit nowadays because everybody's at home. But it's probably not being used at its full capacity unless you're playing games on it all the time. But you can use that extra idle time that your computer is just sitting there not doing anything or not doing anything hard, and you can donate that extra processing power to this network, and the Folding at Home team will take your donation and turn it into experiments looking for cures to the coronavirus. I think it's so cool. I'm excited about it. I'm very happy that we made it the top 5,000. That's awesome. I kind of said I wanted to do that last week because I think we were up in the high 6,000s last week, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool for your top 5,000. We hit up. We got there this week, so that's exciting. I'm happy about that. Alrighty, Dire, you have instructions here for you.
I would like to post that picture though.
Oh.
So, in case you guys are wondering what an amphibious assault ship is basically a mini carrier that also opens up, and there is a spot in the bottom where
Could you have sent me a lower resolution picture?
Yes.
So pixely.
It's a mini carrier that also launches boats into the water from the bottom of it, and it has a lot of.
Oh,
it can
it's
launch.
It like gives birth to them. It's like how
Yes.
it's how Navy ships are born.
Yes. So, but we basically, I mean, their carriers, the two carriers that I have are mini carriers, anyways. So we send
Wait, so
we did
it's
send a carrier
This is a carrier that carries boats.
and also planes on top.
It's weird.
It's a boat within boats.
It's a Russian doll boat.
But it launches these boats that go ashore.
Do these boats have? Oh, they're like landing boats.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're landing boats.
Okay, it's like D-Day stuff. Okay,
Right.
that sucks.
Except for on D-Day, they had to load from the side of the boats, which is terrible looking.
Well,
Anyways, that's
Awesome.
what a amphibious assault ship is.
perfect. I love it already. Okay.
And Shadow Wolf got all of the lemons.
Really?
How'd that happen? Congratulations.
Wow, that's yeah, you touch that chest, you get all the lemons. Okay. Are you ready for
I'm ready.
the next story? Okay, leave YouTube. Bye, YouTube.
It's nice knowing you, but if you want to watch the rest of the show, you need to go to D Live.
Yes.